just so you guys know, I put timestamps down below. So if you want to skip straight to the character and ability discussion, you can go ahead and do that. Alright, time for video. Hello, my fellow TCManites. Recently, Gun announced that they can't get the rights to TCM2 or Chop Top, as I'm sure lots of you know. And this might leave people wondering what the next fan member will be seeing as it can't be Chop Top, unless Gun's been lying to us. Personally, I think we should be expecting to get Sheriff Hoyt pretty soon, since they confirmed that they have the rights to Thomas Hewitt in their last dev stream. But aside from Hoyt and Chop Top, what fan members and victims can we expect to get in the future, or has Gun run out of ideas? If the unlikely latter happens to be true, I have designed a character fit with 3 abilities and a full backstory and lore. You know, because I know Gun loves that, and so do I. I like lore. So, enough batting around the bush, let me get right into it. Jedd, or Jedd Sawyer, is an intelligent mechanic and inventor, who loves machinery, of course. Yes, I picked the name as an homage to the terrible Lionsgate timeline, for those nerds amongst you who, like myself, who know that. Yeah. Shoot! Get it! Anyway. Jedd is the younger brother of Hans. Oh, whoops, you're not supposed to see that. Hans. He is in fact the one who taught Hans everything he knows about mechanics, and even designed the battery traps that he uses. Although he considers them to be primitive toys, and they're too simple for him. He likes complicated designs. The two differences between these two, because you might say, oh, isn't Hans also a mechanic or something? Well, Hans tends to spend most of his time drag racing and bar fighting, according to his description. And whereas Jedd, he's the more actual inventor, tinkerer guy. He's always messing with parts that he salvaged from the cars of his past victims, of the Sawyer's past victims, and seeing what he can do with them. He doesn't like to let anything go to waste. Anyway, speaking of Hans and drag racing, just a fun little thing. Jedd, since he is a mechanic, he services Hans' car before and after every race in his own body repair shop, which could wind up being a map if this character is added to the game. And but it's not so much just Hans' drag racing skill that made Hans a legend. It also is a lot of his brother's excellent engineering. Alright, that's about all I can talk about there. Now I'll talk about the lore of his weapon, so I can transition into gameplay discussion. Jedd's pride and joy is his brand new stun baton that he recently invented. But since it is brand new, it hasn't been tested yet. He doesn't know how well it'll work. And so suddenly, when the victims break out and they start running wild, he sees this as the perfect opportunity to work out all the kinks with his new invention. By default, Jedd's stun baton is powered off, and he uses it like a regular bludgeoning baton, just a little bit longer than Drayton's broomstick. However, when he activates his ability, the stun baton then becomes powered on for a very short duration. A decent-sized duration. And this changes his attacks from, swinging, bludgeoning strikes to pokes as he's trying to hit them with the barbs on the end. And maybe it'll even give him longer range. That could be an interesting skill thing for Jedd players. They have to kind of differentiate the range difference between the swings and the pokes. Anyway, if he hits a victim with the barbs, the victim will be stunned. They'll fall to the ground for a second. It shouldn't take them long to get up, and then once they start moving again, they'll have a slight hindrance. Their movement speed will be lessened a little bit. And whilst they're doing this, Jedd's baton will spark and it'll shut off, and he will then stop for a moment to tighten a screw or a bolt, do something to fix it, and he'll likely let out some frustrated swears about how his invention isn't working. Anyway, this short animation will give the victim a chance to get up and just get a little bit of difference before Jedd gets on him again. That way you won't have to worry about him hitting them the moment they get up. That's his first ability. His second ability is a passive. He'll be a chaser, but not like the other chasers. He won't be as strong of a chaser. He is skinny enough to fit through wall gaps, but he can't fit through crawl spaces. He's too much bigger than Sissy and the skeleton. So he can't fit into crawl spaces, and whenever he is going through gaps, he has to, like, drag himself through and pull himself through with his hand. It's like his jacket gets caught, and he has to really struggle to get through. And that'll be his second ability. And his third, this one, I was originally thinking it wouldn't be necessary, but it's so cool that I really want to include it. So, his ability will be to rig toolboxes to explode. I know, scary. There will be 2 types of toolbox bombs to choose from, so that way you can have 2 vastly different playstyles. But you have 2 different types. The first one, I like to call flash bombs. They won't do any damage, and all they'll do is they'll make a loud noise to alert the family, they won't do any damage, and they will temporarily blind the victim, since they're like flash grenades. Jedd can only carry 2 at a time, and they go on to cooldown after they're placed. And the reason why I wanted to... Well, this also means that he can put down as many as he wants on the map. He'll never run out. But the reason why I put it on 2, gave him 2 slots, is because I want him to be able to keep the ability on cooldown all the time. A good Jedd player is never going to have his inventory full of traps. He's always going to at least have 1 free space, so that way the cooldown will be going all the time. Now you might be asking, oh my gosh, this seems overpowered. You can just cover the whole map with these things. They can be disarmed quite easily, and you don't even need a bone shift to disarm them. The way this will work is a victim, if they suspect that a trap is on the toolbox, there's a prompt to check for a trap, and they will slightly lift the cover of the lid. Basically, if I had to explain the mechanism, the bomb is inside the toolbox, and there is a little wire attached to the lid of the toolbox, so that when the lid is opened, it'll trigger it'll pull the cord and trigger the trap. But the victim can check for the trap by very slightly lifting the lid and looking for the wire. So you can do this on every single toolbox, whether it's trapped or not. And when they check, if a prompt to disarm the trap appears, they can disconnect the cord from the lid and the trap's disarmed and it's gone. But I like the idea of this because it will kind of help to instill paranoia in the victims and slow them down, because those ones who are paranoid will check just about every single toolbox in a fear that they might have a trap on. Now you might say, oh, well that's not really going to deter them very much. They might just tank the trap and be like, there's no family members around, I'll just blow it up. You know. That's why I came up with a second one. These ones I do like to call blast traps, blast bombs, and they are very different. First off, they're on a much heftier cooldown, and you can only carry 1 at a time, because they're a lot more punishing. Basically, when you place a blast trap, the big difference here is that you can see them on the surface of the toolbox, unlike the flash traps, which are hidden within. You can see them. But they cannot be disarmed. I know, scary. They can't be disarmed. And the way that they trigger is basically... They blow up when the victim breaks the sound threshold and makes a loud noise. Only then do they explode. And when they explode, they'll deal a little moderate amount of damage. Probably like as much as like the average smack from a family member. And then they'll make a loud noise, and also they'll knock the victim down for like 1 to 2 seconds. You know. They'll very shortly knock the victim on the ground because, you know, the blast, it throws them on the ground. And only then is it gone. If you think this is really bad and that you should be able to disarm it, I feel like the way disarming it could work would be that you need, like, not a bone shiv. I think it should require a lockpick. And it has a little mini-game, kind of like lockpicking. But if they mess up, if they break the sound threshold, or if they mess up, then I don't know how it'll work. But if they mess up, the bomb will also detonate in their face. So, if you do want to make it disarmable, then that's how it should work. So that was my idea for the second type of trap. This one will help, because I know lots of people are kind of frustrated that victims literally always rush toolboxes. This is literally the way to go. They always do it, not without fail. So this will basically force them to do toolboxes quietly. That, or they'll have to go find another toolbox that doesn't have a trap on it. So I feel like that'll be a very cool way to force victims to actually quietly do toolboxes. And now, I also last night, came up with some ability tree stuff. So let me start with, like, the middle portion. And most of the middle portion for all characters, I feel like should just be, like, cooldown reduction stuff. So, the middle one could be, like, reduces the cooldown for, activating the stun baton. The second one could be, reduces the cooldown for traps, for your toolbox traps. The third one, this one could be interesting, slightly increases the slow effect from stunning victims. That could be interesting, from hitting them with a stun baton. And it's probably going to have like a 10% and then 20% in the middle. And now, once we get to the third part, that's where this gets interesting. Ooh, rubbing my hands together evilly. Alright, let's say for the middle one, this one will be a stun baton thing. Basically what it'll do is it will give you, whenever you stun a victim, you will then get you'll get to stun one more time before your stun baton shuts off completely. So basically, if there's like multiple victims in the area, you could activate your stun baton, and then stun one of them, and then run over and stun the other, to slow them both down. And maybe give your fellow family member a chance to grab one of them. Now, if there is no other victim in the area, I feel like you could probably stun the one that's on the ground a second time. And that could have an interesting animation where he, like, zaps them on the chest while they're on the ground. And what will this do? I mean, it might just add a little bit of extra damage, but it could also make the slowing effect a little bit, it could slow them a little bit more. So there could be, like, the ultimate slowing build for the stun baton if you want to focus entirely on the stun baton. The slowing build basically just maximizes the hindrance possibility. And for another Tier 3 ability upgrade, I guess, we'll give you an extra slot for a trap. So if you're using stun traps, if you're using stun bombs or flash bombs, I'm forgetting all the names I gave to everything. If you're using flash bombs, you'll then have 3 slots to hold 3 traps in. And if you're using blast bombs, you'll only have 1 extra. You'll have 2 instead. So this will basically allow the guy with blast bombs to maximize his potential of, like, you know, he can keep it constantly on cooldown at all times. Which, I feel like it's important. I've noticed something that Gun has done recently with all of the ability tree stuff, is that there's only, like, one go-to Tier 3 ability upgrade to go for. There's only one, like with Nancy, Clear Vision, Leatherface, Insta Start, Cook is reveal victims to family. You know, there has to be some other add-ons that are worth it to go for, you know? I'd say Hands might be the only character that kind of has that, because I wouldn't say his tier 3 ability upgrades are that strong, so it's kind of like they all feel like meh, so it's kind of like whatever, I'll pick out any of them. It's, at least to me, that's how they feel. So I feel like it's important to have at least 2 tier 3 ability upgrades that are pretty strong, so that you'll have to choose between which one. Like, do you want to have a whole crap ton of traps on the map? Then you want to get the extra slot upgrade. Do you want to have like really big slowdown and killing potential? Then you're gonna want to go for that extra stun. As for the third one, I don't know what it could be. I guess I'll leave that up to you guys. I also thought of one unique perk for him. You could call it Slow Your Roll. What it does, it has a different effect whether or not you have stun traps or blast traps. So if you have stun traps, it increases the amount of time it takes to check for a trap. It makes the animation a bit slower for them, which would help slow everyone down who's very paranoid. It'll slow the game down even more. And if you have blast traps on, it basically reduces the threshold, the noise threshold, to trigger the trap. So you might have bombs going off a lot more in the match than you would normally. And this does seem like a really strong, unique perk, and unique perks normally don't have any downsides, so I don't want to give this one any downsides. I would say, though, to compensate, maybe put this in like a weak portion of the skill tree, so it's like, yeah, you have this one super strong, unique perk, but the other perks are probably going to be like pretty meh, you know? Or even crazier, since it's such a good perk, you could make it take up 2 perk slots. No, that seems like it would break the game. It would take them a few patches to make that work properly. Anyway, I've gone off script for this whole skill tree thing, so let me figure out where I was on my script. Okay. Now that's the whole gameplay discussion bit done for. Now I'm just gonna talk about how I came up with Jedd and all the various skin potential and stuff. I came up with Jedd a while ago, actually. After I watched a movie, or it was a TV show, I can't remember, where a character fixed up a stun stick, and I thought, a stun baton would make a really, really cool and scary weapon in TCM. Just imagine you're getting chased, and then you hear it turn on, you hear that crackling, fizzing of the electricity, and you're like, oh god, I don't want to get tased. It'd be terrifying. It's like imagining that crackling, popping noise of Hans' battery traps, but it's getting closer to you. It's the same kind of feeling as the chainsaw slowly approaching. But once I thought of that, the first image of a character to pop into my head was a sort of greaser, biker-looking guy with a scrapped-together baton, with a homemade-looking baton. And short afterwards, when I was thinking about how his animations would look and his executions, I'm like, he needs something to do aside from shock the guy and smack them in the execution. And so I thought, I'm gonna give him a cigarette. He'll smoke a cigarette the whole time. And so that way I thought he could have executions where he like puts out the cigarette on the victim's face or like on their neck and stuff. You could also incorporate it in his idle animations. He'll like take it out and let out a big puff of smoke, put it back in, or in his stun animations, he'll drop his cigarette, it'll go out, and he has to pick out a new one and light a new one before he can start moving again. And, but I also thought about it, I was like, that would be so inconvenient to have him light new cigarettes. Imagine, he'd have to holster his stun baton, he'd then have to reach into his pocket, pull out a box of cigarettes, pull out a cigarette, put the box back, reach into another pocket and pull out a lighter, light the cigarette, put the lighter back, and then he can finally smoke the cigarette. That'd be so complicated animation-wise. They'd have to make 2 extra assets. So I thought, nah, let me just make it a lot easier. And I put a box of cigarettes on his belt so that he could easily just grab a new one, and they only have one cigarette asset to worry about. They don't have to worry about the box and the lighter asset and all that. And he'll use the batons, the lightning, the shock from the baton to light it. So, it's perfect. Yeah. And, but yeah, and I can imagine him putting it out on victims and stuff. Or, like, flicking it on them like Spy from TF2. And I also feel like it's important to give each character some little tick that they do. Because it's like giving tools to the motion capture actors for them to bring the characters to life. Like good examples of this are Nancy cleaning herself off and adjusting her glasses because she's very ladylike, and her mother she didn't raise a little savage girl. She gotta be dignified. Or Johnny taking the time to clean his blade after a kill. None of the other family members have ever done that. They never cleaned their weapons. Go ahead, look. I'm pretty confident. And Sissy, she's the only character that does these triumphant little bows and poses after a kill. And all those little quirks, those little tiny details in the acting really goes into making the characters feel like real characters. Real people. And I love that. That's the entire thing that made the original film scary, was that it was believable. It felt real. And that's what I love about this game, is how much they care about making it feel real, about immersing you. So I put as much detail into this character as I could. Also, if you're wondering why I made Jedd Hans' brother, well, halfway through drawing Jedd, I kind of realized that his outfit and the whole biker style made him look a lot like Hans. So, I thought about it for a second. I was like, there's nothing in Hans' bio about him being a mechanic by trade or explaining how he learned how to ripstall. So I decided, someone probably taught him how to do it. And I'm like, let's have it be his little brother Jedd. And you might wonder, why is it little brother? Well, because Hans is huge. He's had a lot more time to grow than Jedd has. And, and if you're curious about skins, now I'm excited. I thought a greasy jumpsuit that might have some blood spatter on it would make a lot of sense as his workwear. Kind of like Cook's filler-up outfit. It's what he'd wear at work, since he's a mechanic, so he'll have a full-body jumpsuit. You could maybe tie up his hair, since he wants to keep his hair out of the way, and maybe even give him a sort of baseball cap, something like that, to keep oil from falling on his face and head. You could also give him a more fancy attire. Some brand new jeans, fancy buckle, big shiny buckle on his belt, leather jacket rather than a full leather jacket with sleeves rather than just a leather vest. Nice button-up shirt underneath. If you want to get really Texan, you could put some spurs on his boots and that could make an ambient clicking sound as he walks. And for those of you who don't live in Texas, people do this. I'm not even kidding. People love dressing up as cowboys, and I'm pretty sure they also did back in the 70s. This is not very far-fetched at all. I kind of included that because, you guys kind of want to know, like, what's the skins going to be like. But also, just to say that there's endless possibilities for skins and fashion. If you ask me, I don't know why some of Art Bully's first few skins have been so lackluster. Like, Virginia's and Hans's and... Oh, what was the other one that everyone hated? I can't remember. That might just be it. But, the 70s had really, really interesting fashion. And I think Art Bully isn't very familiar with the clothing of that era, but I think that's all changing because... I think they're getting more into the groove of it, like with the new summer skin pack. I think they're starting to get used to it, but also, I kind of want to inspire people to make their own skins and their own character concepts, Go out there, draw a cool skin for somebody. I think I'll start the conclusion now. I just want to, say that this has been a real joy to make. I was so bored before, and I think a creative project is exactly what I needed. Let me thank my friend Octo for drawing Jedd. I really cannot tell you how great this looks, especially compared to my original drawing. If you guys like this, I'll probably make more, seeing as I have I have 2 other characters drawn up, and I have another one in my head. I just need to ask Octo to draw them well, because I can't. I won't spoil much, but I will say that the next one has a canine companion. Ooh, totally didn't steal it from Dead by Daylight. Ooh. Like I said, this was so much fun to make, and I hope this kind of revives excitement and hope for TCM, and like I said earlier, encourages others to make character concepts, especially for victims, because I don't play enough victims to know how to design an interesting character for them. Like, I don't know, I'm too obsessed with the family, and I love like all the fan art and stuff of them being an actual family. I think it's adorable. I'm a family man all the way, guilty as charged. But like I said before, it isn't that hard to come up with good skins too. So, like, here's an example of this incredible fan-made sissy bride skin, for example. It looks way better than what we got. What we got was a nightgown. Looks like something my granny would wear. But, you know, if we keep one-upping them like that with our character concepts and skin designs and ideas, they'll have no choice but to put our ideas in the game. I mean, if you don't believe me, I mean, we peer-pressured them into adding shirtless Johnny. Who's to say we can't pressure them into adding the bride skin or Jedd to the game? I could keep going on and on, but I have to end it somewhere, especially before I get carried away. How do I end this? Until next time, bye.